I was just like, I'm going to buy Izzy a freaking rental. And I just wrote it down. And then literally like within 3 weeks, this property popped up and I bought it with the intention of it being hers.
You bought your 3-year-old daughter a home or a rental. How the hell did you do that?
Izzy has a rental property that's cash flowing. She's got like 35K or so in equity in the property.
How the hell you've been able to do 200 house flips?
Flips are just such a highly leveraged business. We've got 15 or so in inventory, like of active projects. So when I first got into real estate, I started with a small firm and we were buying packages of foreclosures. So like we buy a portfolio of like 50 houses or 20 foreclosures or whatever. And so we were running multiple projects across the country.
What's been some of the biggest takeaways or learning lessons from 200 house flips?
I think the biggest mistake typically that flippers make is like changing the plan. You cannot change the plan like midway unless you have to like absolutely pivot.
I know that you started a club recently, and you also have a couple different school communities or something like that. Can you talk about those?
We had an investing club we were launching on Fractional, which was just to raise some private money. We have a free community on school, and we have about 3,600 people in that community.
3,600?
Yeah.
Holy crap. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Lowdown. Today's episode isn't about how to make more money. It's about what kind of legacy you're building and leaving behind. I'm joined by Stephanie Lombardo, who has completed over 200 house flips. She has grown a significant rental portfolio and is intentionally building ownership, not just for herself, but for her daughter as well. So, Steph, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me today.
Of course. So I don't have kids yet, but my wife and I, we're looking to start a family later this year. And as someone building a hotel business while also still working full-time as a nurse, I think a lot about how to really be present without losing momentum. So I'm kind of curious, like, how have you been able to navigate that while also becoming a parent?
Sure. So probably the easiest way for me to at least get started in it is just tell you a little bit about my background and how we kind of got to where we are. So I have a 4-year-old. She's about to turn 4. She's turning 4 in like 10 days.
Happy early birthday.
Yeah. She'd tell you at any time I mention January, it's January 11th is her birthday. So she wouldn't let you forget. But yeah, so she turns 4 in just about a week. And when I've been in real estate for 10 years, and I'll cut past all of the beginning stuff, but I started as a flipper. I sold real estate. So I was very much active in real estate. And so similar to you, you have a job, which is your active income. You're doing, real estate, whether it was your flips or going into this hotel venture. Again, it's more like active income. It's a business that you're running. So that's what I was doing in the first half of my real estate career. And my husband, when I was already in real estate, but he had a full-time job. So he was self-employed. He was a tennis pro. And so we knew, obviously I was in real estate, but I knew that I wanted to build more for my family and for her. And of course, being self-employed, it was like, what's our retirement going to look like? And we knew rentals was the path. So we started to build before we had our daughter, and we worked, we hustled really hard. And when she came, we had enough built up that my husband was able to start to step away. And it was probably when she turned a year that my husband was able to leave his full-time job and get into real estate with me, full-time. And I say he runs our family flips. And so he keeps a couple of projects going and he manages our rental portfolio, but he really works part-time. And for me, because I was fully active selling real estate, I had a team, I had a property management company, I had all of the things. After I had my daughter, again, probably within the first year, I realized it was just too much chaos, too many different things going. And so I focused on the things that made me the most money, but gave me back the most amount of time. And for me at that time, it was flipping. And so I focused on flipping. I stopped selling because I was dealing with clients all the time. So I guess and I'm sorry if that's a long answer, but I think as we went through, it was starting to make the key decisions of like the time and money freedom, right? Like we weren't in a position, obviously, that we can just retire or both take time off, but we started to make different choices, both as like the parent, like me as the mother had to make different choices. And then him as the father started to make different choices for what was important to him. And truthfully, I work more than he does. And that's the way I like it. But making those intentional decisions both before we had her, so like leading up to when we wanted to start to have a family. And then in the first year that she was born, we made some kind of big decisions so that we had the time to be present. Because if you don't have that, you can't be, like if you're
Hmm.
running all the time. So
Yeah. So if you had to start all over again, I mean, and you were starting from scratch and you weren't intentional about, we're going to do this for 5 years before having our daughter, how would you have done it differently?
I think I would have done it differently. I don't know. It kind of depends on when you get in it, because for me, like when I had my daughter, I was really scared to lose myself of like this identity that I had. And so I actually kind of doubled down on a lot of things after I had her. Now, when I got pregnant, I knew I had to set up some different things for my team. And being in the US, like we don't have like great maternity leave. Being self-employed, we don't have any maternity leave. So when I got pregnant, I think I made some quick choices. And I think as a parent, you will just start to do some of that stuff. Some of it and the changes that you'll make, I think you don't think about until you're there and you start to sort of be forced to those decisions. But I think for me, I probably would have given myself a longer runway. And I think I would have given myself a little more grace to not go so hard after I had her. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I mean, it's just such a it just rocks your world in so many amazing and scary ways.
Hmm. Besides focusing on like the higher value tasks like the flipping, what are some other examples of some of these big decisions that you made once you had your daughter?
I definitely, from a business perspective, I hired more help and or just kind of okay with those extra expenses. I think for somebody who's like an entrepreneur or self-employed, getting yourself an assistant, getting yourself home help is huge, and being okay with that, even though sometimes that feels a little, it may feel, depending on where you are, it might feel a bit beyond you, right? Like I had
Hmm.
a nanny in the house, I had a housekeeper, I had a full-time assistant, I had part-time help. And so those were the things that I just had to install to be able to support me. And so I think even as like, and I can't necessarily speak for all W-2 workers, but I think there's probably a lot more that you can leverage that you aren't aware of, from just hiring somebody to like open your mail and pay your bills or manage, little household things, or running errands, getting a nanny, like all of those things to again give you the space to be present when you need to be present.
Hmm. Yeah, it's one of the most important things that Dan Martell talks about, just like buying back your time and focusing on, like you're saying, the higher leverage things that move the most needle forward on your business. And so, what's been the biggest help or number one hire that has allowed you to like be most present with your daughter?
Definitely like an administrative assistant is always like the first one. Dan will talk about that being your first hire. Yeah, an administrative assistant also, because I hate any kind of admin work. And then having help in the house. I wish I have, I mean, to be honest, right now, even more help in the home. I heard, and I think I actually heard it originally from like Beardy Brandon Turner,
Yeah.
talking about the things that only you can do and versus things you can leverage. And so, like, as a parent, the only thing you can do is be a parent. So it's like, can somebody clean your house? Can somebody, respond to your emails? Can somebody do that? And so, like, eating, working out, and being a mom, like, those are the only things that only I can do. So, yeah, leveraging all the rest. But the administrative assistant for me and the housekeeper.
Okay.
Short answer.
So if you had to quantify how much time you're actually spending on your business right now, working in the business versus like a week or day, and how much time you get to spend with your husband and your daughter, how much would you say you do for each?
Okay, I like working. So just take that into consideration when I answer this question. I work full time. Like I probably don't even work full time. I work like 40 hours a week. I usually get to the office at 8 and I can be done at 2. I can be done at 5 or 6, kind of depending. And I usually work a little on the weekends. And that's by choice because I really love working and building. My husband, he works 1 to 2 hours a day, probably. And then maybe like he works probably focused time 1 to 2 hours checking projects, running around. And then he probably works an extra hour from his phone, depending, right? Sometimes it's a little bit more. But so my husband made different choices and that's what he chooses to do. And that's his comfort level. He's like, I'm cool with this.
Love it.
You
That's the ultimate dream.
want, yeah. And he works out. So my husband and I are both huge into fitness. He's an active Ironman currently, and I'm a retired Ironman. But that was something we really held on to too. And that's something, he spends a lot of time training for Ironmans, and I spend, time going to the gym and working out. And I think that's really important too, not to let go of that when you have kids.
Yeah, definitely not losing your identity like you were saying, and just, I don't know, having kids is such a scary thought. And I mean, I've gotten much more excited about it over the years, but for the first like several years of just knowing my wife and getting in a relationship together, I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do it, because you see people who get kids, they no longer travel, and they no longer are able to focus the time on their business. So I'm just like, maybe I'll keep waiting, but I know that you're never going to have all that preparedness or be ready to have the kids. So I think you just kind of got to do it. And it seems like I love how you've been able to do it. Just like totally involve her in everything in your business. And so one thing that I want to talk about is, you say you bought your 3-year-old daughter a home or a rental. How the hell did you do that? And what was the thought process behind doing that?
Yeah. So we have a rental portfolio, my husband and I, and she's going to inherit that, like, no question. And we do involve her in things now. Like, again, she's just 4, but she goes to, she's been through flips that we've done. She's been through rentals and projects. Often she refers to them as like stinky houses. Though we did just close on one, and she went yesterday, and it was not a stinky house. So she was very pleased with the purchase. But anyway, she's going to inherit all of that. And okay, so cool. But for me, I really wanted her to have her own thing. I don't know why. I just wanted her to have her own portfolio, her own properties. And then as she grows, my hope is that we will build it together, right? So when she gets a little bit older, she's going to learn. She would learn, of course, the family business, but she would learn from her own portfolio. And so when she turns 18 or 21 or whatever age it is, she would have this thing that she can take and continue. Because I'm assuming in 14 years, I'm probably still going to be working and I'm still going to be running my businesses, but she can take hers and do what she wants. So for us, it's either she could sell it and pay for her college or buy a house or do whatever. She could keep it and keep the cash flow. She could rent out the properties, like whatever she chooses to do at whatever age when we get there. But it was really important for me to just give her her own thing. And I kept thinking about it. And there's a few like wealth building strategies, I guess, that I wanted to implement for her, which I hadn't yet. And that was one. And this year I was just like, I'm going to buy Izzy a freaking rental. And I just wrote it down. And then literally like within 3 weeks, this property popped up and I bought it with the intention of it being hers. So that was sort of the why behind it. And I'm happy to explain the strategy if you'd like.
Yeah.
Of that. Okay. So we fix and flip, and we built our whole portfolio through the BRRRR strategy. And so if your listeners are in real estate, you might be familiar of just buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And so that's how we scaled our portfolio. And so I wanted to do the same thing for Izzy. So what we did was I found this property. It was a wholesale property off market. And I used one of my private money lenders that I had, purchased it with their cash. It was a really light rehab. So I didn't want to do like a full renovation on this property because I didn't want to put too much time in it. So it was a pretty light rehab. Did that. I have a friend who is a property manager. I hired her to do the property management on it. I thought I was going to do Section 8. I didn't need to. And we just rented to a normal tenant. And then after we had the tenant in place and lease, I went through the process of doing a refinance through a traditional lender. So putting it into like a 30-year mortgage. So I know that's a lot, but what it allows us to do essentially is buying a property without any of our own money. So she doesn't have any money in it. I don't have any of my own money in it. We refinanced the private money lender out. And so now Izzy has a rental property that's cash flowing. She's got like 35K or so in equity in the property. And my goal is to build some reserves there. And then, with the cash flow, we can either invest it, do whatever. And I'd like to do that 1 to 2 times a year. So my actual involvement, I mean, I probably have like 10 hours in the thing at most, and I have no money in it. Izzy won't have any. And if she just kept that property until she was 18, it'd be pretty powerful. And of course, if we compound all of the things, it gets pretty cool if you start doing some math behind it. So
100%. So she actually on the deed, stupid question.
Not a stupid question. So I I opened her own LLC. So obviously I have mine. So I opened an LLC. It's her initials and it'll go in a trust. So she will own it. She can't legally own property and she can't legally own the business. So it was more of like having the container and then it'll go in a trust for her. And then we're just managing the money. It's like all just separated. So I opened the LLC for her. I opened the little bank account for her. It'll just stay in that little container.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I want to know is like, how do you raise a wealthy child without raising an entitled one? I think it's awesome that you're doing this, and I would love to do it myself with my kids, but I'm like, that's a fear I have in mind. Like, it's like I haven't have these kids who like expect all these different things. They expect the house, the video games, all this without actually having to put in the hard work. So how are you navigating that and not just like raising a quote unquote like entitled kid?
Well, we could probably maybe we'll revisit this in like 10 years and see, oh, she's so entitled. I think it comes back from just showing them the work that goes into it. So again, like, and I posted about this buying her rental property on social media. And so I got a lot of flack from people and being like, you're just going to give your kid whatever. Listen, if as she's growing up and like if she's in high school and I'm like, hey, like we got to balance the books for your portfolio. And she's like, no, mom, I'm whatever. Then I'm probably not going to give it to her. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Again, she'd probably inherit everything anyway. So ultimately, she'd inherit that portfolio. But I think it's showing them and giving them jobs. And that's, again, part of the reason I wanted her to build this with me as she grows up. So what are the jobs that she can do, jobs inside her business that she can do at 8 and at 12? Because you can do those things. Like if you think about historically parents, like my dad, I used to have to go and like ride around with him on the weekend to go to his different jobs. And I'd like sit there and like hold his drill or whatever. Like that was me learning that my dad was working for the things. Now the things were food and allowance, and I took horseback riding lessons. Like it maybe wasn't a rental portfolio, but it's all kind of, I don't know, I guess it's like whatever your norm is. So if she's working and seeing us put in the work to build it, I think that helps the entitlement. And then also knowing like it can be taken away, right? So, but I don't know, like we're not there yet. And she, truthfully, like I spoil her a lot. I want her to have everything, but I do work really hard and I think she'll see that. So that's what I'm relying on.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm sure she's going to appreciate a lot. And I think about just walking the property with her, and I'm sure she already appreciates a ton. And us as kids, you don't realize these things when you're younger, but I know it's going to stay with her forever. So I'm excited to hear about everything. So I want to switch up gears and just talk about how the hell you've been able to do 200 house flips. At one point, I did 3 house flips. It was definitely a lot, but how have you been able to scale it to doing so many at the same time? I think you're doing like 10 or 20 at the time right now.
Yeah, I think we've got 15 or so in inventory, like of active projects. So when I first got into real estate, I kind of just fell into real estate. So I didn't really make the choice. It picked me, I guess. But I started with a small firm and we were buying packages of foreclosures. So you don't really see that now, but we were buying like 50, like we buy a portfolio of like 50 houses or 20 foreclosures or whatever. And so we were running multiple projects across the country then. And so I've done that. I've done that at scale. I've done like a couple at a time. I think I've always had a flip going over the last 10 years. Like I don't think I've never not had one. And then when we were scaling our portfolio, we had like our BRRRs and our flips. The best way is to do it remote or treat it as such, in my opinion, if you're going to do it at scale. So of course, when we were buying across the country, we weren't local there. We never saw any of them. And so it's building an on-site team. And then something I've learned and improved a lot this year is building like a backend operations team. So, flips are just such a highly leveraged business. It's a hard business though. It's a very hard business.
Definitely. And so do you think working for that firm really helps you a lot navigate and be able to operate a flipping business from afar? Like if you started all over again and didn't start with that firm, do you think you'd still be able to do it again?
I think because it was my first taste, it showed me that it was possible, because I think a lot of people they're very hesitant to think that they can flip from a distance. I think if you're going to flip, it's the best way to do it. Personally, because you can get sucked into spending so much time on the property and at the job. And if you're wanting to build a flip business, you really need to be focusing on the high leverage tasks, which are finding deals and finding money and then running your business, right? But so I think if I didn't start there, I probably would have started just local. I don't want to say just local, but I would have started local. I probably would have been more hands-on, probably would have tried to DIY more than what I did. And even when I started flipping locally, because I flipped at scale and then I started doing some more locally myself. And I was on the jobs a little bit more, and it's just not scalable. So I think it just showed me that it was possible.
Yeah. I think even besides flipping, I think it's good to do it maybe outside your neighborhood. It's scary for sure because you have less access, but like you said, it forces you to build those teams, those processes, and allow you to build a business that where you're not in it. And that's really how you scale, like you were saying.
Yeah, I had a woman. I mean, I work with a lot of people who are learning to flip or looking to start in real estate. And, I had one woman I remember, and she wanted to go up and see the property and make sure she was there for all of the inspections and check in. And I was like, okay, well, what do you know about construction? She's like, well, nothing. Okay, so what are you going to do when you're there? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to be in control when I'm there, right? People think that they're going to be in control. And I was like, if you can find the right people who can help you, like home inspectors, good contractors, real estate agents, then you can rely on their expertise to be your eyes and ears and professionals on jobs.
What's your favorite markets to do these out-of-state flips in?
Okay, so
Area.
we primarily, I flip in Augusta, Georgia is a primary one, and I'm local there. So I say I've learned how to flip out of state, out of area, and I still do. So I have properties in Augusta, Georgia. It's a half hour from me. I've never been to them. So I still treat it the same, even though proximity wise. But some other good markets, depending on what your goals are, like Ohio is always good. The Southeast, we've got some right now, upstate South Carolina. We've got some in Alabama. And so for me, I like staying in the Southeast because it's familiar, but I've got some people I work with, like Midwest is really good too. So price point wise.
Are all the price points pretty similar?
So for us, they are. I like to stay in around the median home value. That's it's just where I like to be. So we're going to be under 250, under 300 typically, as far as a resale value. And then, so that's pretty, could be the same Southeast and Midwest, but it just depends on everybody's individual strategy. Like you've done, obviously you're in California, so your price point's a lot different, but it just depends what your strategy and your comfort level is.
Yeah. So I want to just do a little counter positioning. So everyone who's here in the Bay Area is like, why would I want to do 10 flips when the price point is lower, smaller margins, when I can just do one flip, same amount of stress, and make just as much profits? Why not do that yourself?
So I guess for me, I've done some higher end flips in my area. So I didn't go and buy in California, but I was doing, 500 price point and above, which is mid to higher end in my area. And I've just never done well. The design was the design required more, the details required more. And it was kind of all eggs in one basket. And so I think can be the hardest thing for a flipper is when you're getting started, it can be hard. You're not typically going to just start and have 5 going at once. But when you have one flip, it's everything is in that flip. Your freaking heart and soul. I don't know if you felt that way. Everything is in that deal, regardless of the profits. And so for me, when I had multiple, I just kind of played off volume. We could sell them a little bit faster. The timeline was a little bit faster. I just was base hits instead of a home run. So that's what worked for me. But I have a friend of mine, she started the same way and she does luxury flips in Florida. She's like, I'm not going to do anything that's less than $1 million. So I think it's just to each their own.
Yeah. And I think it's great, honestly, to start in a lower price market because, yes, you may make less, but also the mistakes are less costly. I mean, for me, if you have one bad flip here in the Bay Area, it could wipe you out. Whereas if you learn all these skills first in a smaller, lower price point area, you'll learn the skills, but also cannot wipe you out.
Yeah. And often people don't have, kind of the math's all the same, right? If you need to put 10% or 20% down into a flip, if you're buying a house for $500,000 versus $100,000, some people don't have the $50K plus. Maybe some people have $25K. So, and you just kind of reverse engineer to where you are and what makes sense. And so, I'm working with a guy right now who's in the Bay Area, and we're looking in Ohio for him. And so kind of the same thing. He's looking smaller price point, building the skills, and then he can take it back there. So
What's been some of the biggest takeaways or learning lessons from 200 house flips, or even just your early years when you're doing just a couple?
I think the biggest mistake typically that flippers make is like changing the plan. Like you have to, you cannot change the plan like midway unless you have to like absolutely pivot. But often when people are in a project, they start to think that they have the best, like their house is the best because they know how much work they've put into it. And so they start to have like a bit of a scope creep. They start to have a bit of like a valuation creep, right? They're like, oh, like I was planning on my house selling for 300, but I think this is a nicer house. I think it could sell for 350. And so I'm going to do these other things. And so I think that can catch up with you. So I think really just sticking to your plan and your numbers. And probably, I think that's the biggest one because it can just be a very emotional process. I don't know if you found that when you were doing flips, but you can really get emotional as you go through the job.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely got emotional. Definitely got to the point where like my house is definitely worth this because I put around this. But it's so funny. Like no matter how much you put into it, the comps, the surrounding houses dictate kind of what your house is, right? So it's like even if you put $500,000 into this $200,000 house, if the neighborhood's only 300,000, it's going to sell for that. So I think that's just one thing that flippers need to realize too, especially if you're new. It's like you can put in the best material ever, but if the neighborhood doesn't support that, there's no point doing it.
Yeah,
So
and it is something super important to watch is that neighborhoods you get capped out in a neighborhood, regardless of price per square foot or materials or whatever. Like you have to be careful you don't over improve because at some point your buyer is going to say, if I have 500K to spend, I'm not going to spend it here. I'm going to go over here and spend it. And so then you're kind of SOL. So
yeah. So when did you start to implement OPM, other people's money, and like the back end stuff that has allowed you to scale? Was this very early on, or was this much later?
yeah, I think because I learned first with no money. And so, we were borrowing all of the money. So again, I saw that that was possible and I didn't have any money. So I didn't have a choice. So I started with private money and hard money. So I'd use like a hard money for the bulk of it and then Gap. And I had a partner at the beginning. And so he had a bit more experience. And so that helped. And then, yeah, eventually I just started to look for more sources of cash. I found one of my first private money lenders I found on Bigger Pockets, just like on a thread. And I sent him a message. It was like, I would never advise anybody to do this, but it's worked out really well for me because he's still one of my lenders like 6-7 years later. But yeah, so pretty early on. And it comes down to like, if you don't have any money, you just got to figure it out.
Mhm.
Figure out how to
So you would not advise someone to go onto Bigger Pockets on the forums and try to find a private money lender?
No, I think you can. I think you absolutely can go online and go to forums. What I did was talked to this guy online. Like, I don't even know that we had a Zoom or a meeting or a phone call or anything. And I had to he took title to the property and I put in like 10K or something. And that was a lot of money to me at the time. And so I gave this guy like 10K and he had title to the property. And I was like, well, this is stupid. Like, what would happen? But I was thinking, I was like, I don't think this person's going to ruin his reputation over $10,000. So, and that was the case. But that's what I would do. I wouldn't just like give somebody your money. Like I sent it to him directly. I didn't go through title or anything. So that's what
Hmm.
I would not do.
Yeah. Where have you been able to raise a lot of private money now? Is it your network? Is it just social media? Where are you getting a lot of these funds now?
Yeah, mostly my network for like direct private money. I have a couple of more like institutional private money lenders, meaning like I have a handful that have funded, 5 to 10 at a time for me, so they've got some deeper pockets. And then social media and network and people I've met. So, yeah, it's growing now and it's been really good. I think it's such a cool opportunity both for like the active investor, like the real estate, like the flipper in my example, and then the private money lender because it's like just such a great win-win for both
Hmm.
parties.
How did you get over any fears in the beginning of that fear of like, I'm asking people for money versus giving them an opportunity?
I think just going through that frame in my mind, I was very scared. I remember the first time I pitched to somebody and I mean, he didn't give me any money. And yeah, I remember the first time I really pitched to somebody. Yeah, he didn't give me any money and I was really nervous. And I think it's just going through that reframe of like, you're not looking for a handout. For me, I always felt like I needed to figure out how I could do all of this on my own. And it's like, we don't have, typically people don't have just millions of dollars in cash sitting in their bank account. So it was like, no, this is how I'm going to operate my business. I'm going to use other people's money. This is the opportunity. And the more times you do it, the more confidence you get.
Mhm.
Repay people, giving people big checks and going, dang, like I need to be on the other side of this thing. So I think that's how you just do it scared.
Yeah. Just always be raising. That's one thing I'm really trying to implement into 2026. You never know who's going to be a potential capital partner. I mean, I was at a conference earlier a couple months ago, and the person was saying, "Oh yeah, I was talking to this Uber driver, and the Uber driver ended up being a capital partner." And so you just never know who has money and who's willing to work with you.
I think that's a huge lesson that I learned this year too, because I basically ran out of capital. I ran out of my sources because I was scaling faster than, I had previously. And so we got tapped out. And I didn't think that that was going to happen. And it took a lot longer to build the relationships up again of people who were new to private money lending. They weren't necessarily new to me, but they were new to the concept. And usually people need a little bit of time to get comfortable with that idea, right? Like, how does it work? And then what happens? And you're really going to do what? So, warming up that relationship for longer. So, always be raising, always telling people what you do, always
Hmm.
talk about the opportunity, whether you're ready to take the money or not, knowing who you can call when you need it, when the
Yeah.
opportunity's there.
And you never know when that seed will grow into something more. Like you can plant the seed today, and maybe they don't come around to like a couple months later, or 3 months later, 6 months later, but it could come, and it could exponentially help both you and the investor, for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
And, there's opportunities too to refer and to position people differently if it doesn't make sense for you, and because everybody's going to have a different goal, right, and a different alignment depending on amount and time frame. So
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk about your team now. You say you have a great backhand team, and you have contractors in each different city that you do. Can you just talk about your backhand team right now and how you've been able to grow that?
Sure. So okay, so we use obviously contractors on all of our flips and projects. I have a couple of core ones. So I have one I've worked with 4 or 5 years, and he's great. So that's one primary contractor. My husband, he's got a small crew that he runs. And then this year we partnered with kind of a national vendor who they'll stand up teams in different cities. So we have kind of one point of contact from a project management perspective, and then they run all of the subs. So that's been nice because if you're running 5 or 6 subs per project, it can be a lot. So that's how we deal with that subcontractor end. I have a full-time virtual assistant who I call him like my project coordinator. And he is pretty much like the day-to-day communications, coordination, scheduling guy on all of my projects. And that's been a huge help for me. And he's really great. He like makes sure he's just got the right personality. So he checks all of the boxes and does that. I have a full-time bookkeeper. That was huge as well. She's also amazing. And the two of them work really well together. Like he sends her, expense reports. And so we can really keep real time on like project costs and such. I have a full-time administrative assistant. We have full-time transaction coordinator. And we even hired our project coordinator, a VA, an assistant to support him. So when you think about offloading work, like if you're thinking about, high leverage tasks,
Hmm.
when you're building out your team, that's sometimes the easiest way is like, instead of trying to hire another of that person, how can you offload some stuff and so that they can just be a rock star in their 20%? Like, how can everybody just keep moving up to their top 20%? So
Yeah,
how we've done it.
that's awesome. Are all these VAs, are they local to here in the US, or are they outsourced to different countries?
They're all in the Philippines.
Uh,
So my whole team is in the Philippines. We had Deal underwriter as well. He was based in Pakistan. But my whole team right now is based in the Philippines, and they're awesome. This probably like the best thing that I built this past year was this team. So
yeah,
they're amazing.
that is amazing. Did you have to fire a bunch of them to get to this point, this amazing team. Like, I know hiring is a very difficult thing in itself. And so can you just talk about where you find these VAs in the Philippines and just that whole process of actually hiring?
Yeah. So I've been using virtual assistants for years, like probably a good 5 or 6 years, I guess I've been hiring VAs. I've used agencies. So if you're just starting to hire, an agency is good. Like I think there's one called Wise or something. It doesn't matter. But like off Upwork even works well too. An agency is nice because they'll sort of recruit and manage, or Upwork is good. And I think when you're just getting started, like you just have to learn. You're going to make mistakes and learn a lot of it as you go. And then eventually, like this team, I started hiring direct. Like I hired off, it's called PH Online. It's a great site specifically for people in the Philippines. And a lot of this team was built through referral. So they knew somebody at a different agency that they had worked at. So I found some cool core people in the Philippines and they kind of helped hire from within the Philippines. And that's made a huge difference in quality of worker.
That's awesome. Have you ever gone to the Philippines or met them in person?
Not yet. I would like to. I think maybe 2026. I need to go over there. So I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I know someone who has a virtual assistant company, and he goes there and has like a big party like once or twice a year with all the VAs, and it seems like a really cool team building environment, and just shows that, I'm just not someone who's across the screen far away. I'm like, you're actually part of the team. And so that when I get to that point, I definitely would want to do that also.
Yeah, I have invested. I think I've invested some pretty good time and energy into creating some good culture. So like my VAs, they typically, like I know that they meet on a daily basis. They've met in person. We order, like my assistant will order like company swag for them over there. So there is some stuff that you can do from a distance without necessarily traveling over there. They are very important to me. And so I asked them, like I just asked all of them their 2026 goals, what they want to do, what their financial goals are, like family goals, and just try to make those my goals. And not, I hope that they feel that, but I think that can make a big difference. And I think trying to pay well if you're hiring from overseas. So, like, I spoke with a guy who sort of prided himself in paying like the least amount possible. And it's like, dude, you could double her salary and it wouldn't even matter to you, and it would matter a lot to her.
Mm.
So I think that's something to think about too, that they're, not a race to the bottom for people overseas either.
Yeah, I would love to just promote the shit out of them. Even, I mean, like you said, promotion or doubling the salary would be a fraction for us, you know?
Yeah, like health insurance. I was like, well, how much is health insurance over there? They were like, that would be important to us. It's like $500 US for the year.
That's crazy.
Dental is $17 for the year.
Wow,
Isn't that crazy?
that is crazy. Yeah, that's why I love traveling, because it always just changes your perspective. Like, I've gone to Vietnam and Thailand, and it's always very humbling and grounding to see all these people there who have literally nothing and they're still so happy. And so you just give them $1 for a tip or whatever, $5 for a tip, and they're just like over the moon. And so, yeah, it's definitely the kind of culture I want to build for myself, is just always self-empowering others and just giving back to them when they deserve it.
Yeah. And I think that kind of going back to your first question and thinking about, as you're building your business and being a parent, I mean, that would be something I would start now, is getting that support in for yourself and hiring somebody who is affordable. Like if you read Buy Back Your Time, it talks about your buyback rate. So even if it was hiring, like my assistant now, I hired her. She gave me the rate that she wanted. It was like $4.50 an hour. And I didn't quite have like full-time work for her, but I was like, I know I want you to be available to me for 20 hours a week. And I hired her as like a personal assistant for a mom. I was like, I want you to help me track my kids' like school calendar. Mind you, I know my daughter's 3, but like the theme days and all of that, I mean, it'll get crazy. So I was like, I just want someone available to me for like 20 hours a week. This is what I'm going to pay you. And then I knew she was there. And I think for someone who is just hiring or thinking about a transition, like how can I leverage more so that I have more time to be a parent? I think that's a really good place to start. And then just giving yourself a bit of that grace, not like how can I fill their calendar of 20 hours, being like, I want to know that I have this support so that I can learn how to hire and train and, implement things into my life and my business. And then you kind of are working within that range. That would be something like going back I would have done. Because when I hired people, I was like, I want to maximize every dollar. And you need to learn too as a boss and as an employer. So
Yeah. So besides your kids scheduling, what other tasks did this first administrative assistant help do? I'm just trying to think of like other things that I could do or another parent can do as far as like giving work to this VA.
she was my first like personal assistant hire, like because I was kind of like, I don't know that I need an in-person personal assistant, but I knew I wanted someone to help me more with personal stuff. And so I was like, I literally just wrote down everything. And I think my job posting was like assistant to busy like mom CEO. And I just said, I want help. Like, I want help setting up a virtual mailbox. I want a virtual phone number. I want somebody to check my emails. I want somebody to like check my bank accounts. I want somebody to have like pull credit card statements. I want somebody to, I just like wrote out all of the little administrative things that happen in my life and literally like put it in the job posting. And I was like, if this intimidates you, like you probably shouldn't come and work for me. But I was like, I want you to help me with like all of the things. I don't know. And so, and our relationship has evolved, but I started giving her like my kid school calendar. And I was like, I don't want, they do like Chick-fil-A day. And I was like, I don't want to forget the 8, because that's not something that I need to like in my brain matter.
Think about
Is like making sure Izzy has $8 to go to Chick-fil-A day, but she can. And so I'm like, just make sure we never miss Chick-fil-A day. And I remember one time she was like emailing Izzy's like, okay, preschool. We're talking preschool here, people. Preschool teacher about her book order. And there was like 10 emails back and forth about Izzy's book order. I was like, I didn't even care if she had books. But like, I don't want Izzy to be left out because I'm too busy on Chick-fil-A, but I don't think that makes me a bad mom. Like, because that's not where I want to be present. Is like, did she get her Chick-fil-A lunch? Like I want to be present when I get home or doing other activities or whatever. So yeah, I just kind of gave her whatever and she loves it. She's helping me with Izzy's birthday party.
Wow. Was your husband very receptive to the help of VAs also, or was that something he had to really get used to?
No, I have built our teams. So I run our VA team even for some of the support we have in our rental business and our family business. So I pretty well run that and they support. So like my TC helps with his real estate closings and transactions. My bookkeeper does all the books for our rentals. And then if they need something from him, they'll just email him and ask. Then he's like, who is this? Like, just send him that. So he wasn't receptive. And I think for spouses who are maybe on a different page, for me, I'm just going to do my own thing anyway. And then I just show him when it works later. I don't tell him about all the messy stuff on the way there.
Yeah. I just making this reference, but my wife and she fought me tooth and nail for getting a cleaning lady for the longest time because I grew up, my mom's like, we're going to do everything ourselves. And for like 5 years, I fought my wife. And then last year, the year before that, we finally got one. And it has been the biggest game changer. And it's just like the smallest thing. And so I'm really excited to just like implement more. And like now I'm telling my mom, like, and all my friends, you got to get a cleaning lady. You got to get a cleaning lady. So I can't even imagine just having someone who actually helps with like these other smaller tasks, like managing your inbox or managing tasks and scheduling. Because for me, I struggle with having so many different tasks, not having in the right buckets or time blocking. So I'm like always constantly thinking about different things and like prioritizing it appropriately. And so I'm definitely going to implement that ASAP into mine.
Yeah, for sure. And I would do like just start with a small budget and small what hours kind of make sense to you, and just build it together and don't worry about having it all. It's like, don't clean your house before the cleaning lady comes over.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about getting organized and setting up systems before they come. Like, have them help you build it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. One thing I want to talk about lastly is I know that you started a club recently, and you also have a couple different school communities or something like that. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, we have our primary. So we had an investing club we were launching on Fractional, which was just to raise some private money. So that was just a temporary event. But I do have a free school community. So I've been on school, I guess, a year and a half. And so we have a free community on school, and I'm going live there in a little later this afternoon. And so that's really fun. We have about 3,600 people in that community, and then I've had
3,600?
yeah,
Holy crap!
yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
good. And then I have a paid community, which I've the last few years, coming on 3 years, been coaching people how to build or how to get started flipping houses and build active income in real estate. And we are launching, I'm pivoting slightly. I'm opening a new chapter and really focusing on building wealth, and specifically with moms and helping women who want to get started in real estate with like a kid focused, property and intention. So we're doing that this month. We're going to be launching that offer. So
That's
also on
awesome.
school.
So different communities, both part of school.
Yeah, we've got just those two. Technically, we'll have 3 communities on school. But I love being in a community. I'm in a couple of different paid communities on there. I'm in Alex Ramosie's Scale Advisory community on there. I was chosen to be in a business competition with Alex Ramosie in scaling your school community as well about a year or so ago. So I'm a big, I'm drinking Alex's Kool-Aid pretty hard. And but I love the communities. I love school. So it's an awesome platform. If you're not on there yet, definitely go check it out. You can come check us out.
Yeah. I love being a part of communities. I've been a part of many also. And, you're always going to pay, whether it be for the community itself or with your own time and money. And if you can expedite everything, expedite it. So you cut your learning from 5 years to 1 year, you learn from other people. I think it's the best thing ever. So if you're hesitant about joining, just join one. And the networking alone makes it invaluable.
100%. And I think that's where you need to focus on. And the coolest thing about Alex's community that I joined this summer when he had his launch, his opening message was give more than you take. And he was like, I mean, if you know Alex, he can be a little intimidating and very, kind of authoritative. But it was like, just come in there and give. Like, don't ask questions. Like, literally for the first month, nobody asked a question. So, and then he finally came on. He was like, you guys can ask questions if you want. So I think when you're joining a community, don't go in there looking to take, like, go and give. And that's how you're going to build a network and find people. It's huge. It's invaluable. Mm-hmm.
Love it. Steph, what are you looking more forward to most in 2026, being the new year?
I think helping these moms. I'm super excited. I'm super excited to be supporting women. I think moms are rock stars. Dads are rock stars too, but moms are, you will be amazed with how much time you have now from when you have a kid. So I think that's what I'm really excited about, is supporting these women, growing our community, and maybe doing a little bit more travel network, like meeting in person, like I did when I met you this summer.
Yep. I'm excited to come over to the East Coast and see your operation and get to hang out some more in person.
To a hotel here in South Carolina.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Steph, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they do so? If they want to learn more about your school community, to see more about what you're doing, where can they find that?
Best place to find me is just on Instagram. So I'm pretty active on there. I'll give you the link, but it's the Steph Lombardo. And then on school, we're Flippin' Empire. So if you just search us in the communities, you'll find us there. But I'll give you the links too.
Awesome. Well, everyone, I really appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you are a parent, if you're looking to start a family, if you're looking to grow your business and scale like Steph has, please share this with someone who'd find value. Give a like, give a thumbs up, give a 5-star review, and really appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, I'm Lorenzo Mercado. This is Steph Lombardo. This has been The Lowdown. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Love you. Peace.